The pasta was overcooked. I remember that detail because I'd been on my feet since 5 in the morning, not at my parents' house, but at the diner on Kellerman Avenue where I worked the breakfast and lunch rush. By the time I got to my mom's kitchen to help with dinner, my feet were already screaming inside my shoes and my lower back had that deep ache I'd come to think of as my body's personal signature. I didn't mind helping. I never minded contributing. What I minded, what I still carry with me on quiet nights, was what happened after the plates were cleared. The living room filled up with aunts, uncles, and my younger sister Cassie's college friends. People who smelled like expensive shampoo and carried themselves with the easy confidence of those who have never once worried about whether a check would clear. I was standing near the bookshelf in the corner, holding a glass of water, wearing the flannel shirt I'd had since I was 23. It had a small fraying at the left elbow that I kept meaning to fix. I hadn't fixed it because fixing it meant buying a sewing kit. Buying a sewing kit meant 20 minutes in a store, and 20 minutes in a store required a day off, and days off had stopped existing for me around the time Cassie started her sophomore year. "Oh my God," Cassie said, and her voice had that new quality she developed at Hargrove University, somewhere between amusement and contempt. "Jordan, are you seriously still wearing that shirt?" I looked down at it. "It's a good shirt." A few of her friends laughed. Not meanly, more like they were taking their cue from her, following the lead of the most confident person in the room. Cassie had become that person. "That shirt is older than my college career," she said, shaking her head. She turned to her friends and made a face that was supposed to be affectionate. It wasn't. "This is my sibling Jordan. They work at a diner and some night job." "Jordan, what's the night job this week?" "Warehouse logistics," I said. "Same as it's been for 2 years." Right. She waved a hand. "Anyway, Jordan's kind of the cautionary tale of the family. No offense." She paused, searching for the word. "No trajectory. Some people are just built differently, right? Not everyone can handle a competitive environment." I set my glass of water down on the shelf very carefully. I could have said something. I had all the receipts, literally. Bank statements in a folder at home. Wire transfer confirmations. Tuition payment invoices. The landlord emails for her campus apartment. The $147 I'd wired her last November when she texted that she needed winter boots and her account was low. I had all of it, organized in a manila folder I updated every semester. But I didn't say any of it, because I'd made a decision years ago that she would never know, that she would go through school untouched by financial stress, that she would focus and study and become whatever she was becoming without the weight of obligation pressing down on her. My parents had agreed to keep it between us. We'd all believed, in some collective family logic, that telling Cassie would distract her, would make her feel guilty. So I had protected her from the truth the way you protect someone from a draft, quietly, without announcement, standing in the gap so the cold doesn't reach them. Standing in that living room, in my fraying flannel shirt, listening to her call me a cautionary tale in front of people I'd never met, I understood for the first time what standing in the gap actually cost. I picked up my glass of water. I smiled with the side of my face that still knew how to perform normalcy on demand. "You're probably right," I said. "I'm not very good with competitive environments. And I went to help my father with the dishes. You need to understand how it started, because real stories don't begin with a villain. They begin with love. I am 27 months older than Cassandra. Growing up, I was the steady one, and she was the bright one. She had something electric about her from the time she was small. She remembered everything she read. She argued with teachers and was usually right. At 11, she won a regional math competition and cried at the ceremony because she'd wanted to win by a larger margin. I loved her for that. I found her intensity wonderful. When she was accepted to Hargrove University on a partial scholarship, the whole family celebrated, and then quietly panicked because a partial scholarship at a private university still meant tuition gaps our parents couldn't begin to cover. I was 24. I sat with my parents at the kitchen table the night after her acceptance letter arrived, and my father spread out the financial aid documents like a map of a war zone. "We're going to have to tell her no," he said. My mother looked at her hands. I looked at the papers. I did the math. "I can cover it," I said. "I'll pick up a second job. Nights or weekends. Between that and my savings, I can cover the first year, and we reassess." "Jordan, she's going to change the world," I said. "I don't want her to not do that because of money." My father looked at the ceiling. My mother pressed her lips together. We agreed not to tell Cassie. She had always been anxious about money in a way that affected her focus. We would tell her the scholarship covered more than it did. She didn't need to worry. That was the whole point. What I gave up over 4 years looked something like this. A trip to see my best friend Marcus in Portland that I'd been planning for 3 years. I canceled it twice and then stopped planning it. A series of cooking classes I'd been genuinely excited about. I'd always thought about culinary school, and I never enrolled. A relationship with a woman named Diane who was patient with my schedule for 8 months and then stopped being patient, reasonably, because I was working 80-hour weeks and couldn't give her anything consistent. We ended it over text on a Tuesday night. I cried for 40 minutes and then set my alarm for 4:30. I spent Thanksgiving working a catering event at a hotel ballroom. Christmas Eve, I worked a double at the diner because the morning guy called in sick and the holiday pay was good. I told my family I'd come for Christmas dinner, and I did for 4 hours, and then drove home to do warehouse inventory because it was due on the 26th. I did not tell Cassie any of this. She came home for holidays with new energy, new opinions, new references I'd never heard of. She was becoming exactly the person I had imagined she would become.
I was happy about that.
Genuinely happy. And somewhere underneath the happiness was something I didn't examine too closely because examining it would have complicated everything. The shift in Cassie happened gradually, the way most important things happen, not as an event but as a weather pattern. By junior year, there was a new quality to the way she spoke to me specifically. She had developed a theory about me. I came to understand that I was the thing she had successfully avoided becoming. The cautionary tale. The proof that ambition was worth whatever it cost. She didn't know what it cost. That was the entire problem. The hardest moment happened about 6 months before that graduation party. We were in the backyard, just the two of us, and she was telling me about a consulting firm offer she'd received. "I worked so hard for this," she said, fiercely, protectively. "I didn't coast on anything. I earned every bit of this myself." "You did work hard," I said. "You should be proud of that." She nodded, satisfied. Not everyone is willing to sacrifice things. Some people just don't have that in them. I thought about my canceled Portland trip, my abandoned cooking classes, Diane's last text message. 40 minutes crying into a pillow. "You're right," I said. "It comes from sacrifice." She gave me a slightly sad, slightly condescending smile that I knew she meant to be encouraging. "Maybe someday you'll figure out what you want to sacrifice for, Jordan." I turned toward the old maple tree at the fence line. "Maybe someday," I said. The discovery happened on a Tuesday in March, about 10 weeks before graduation. My mother called while I was doing warehouse inventory. Her voice had the quality of someone reporting an accident. "Cassie found the folder," she said. "Your father left the bank statements on the dining room table for tax filing." She picked them up thinking they were something else, and she started reading. "Jordan, she's been in her room for 3 hours. She won't come out." I sat on a crate in the warehouse, surrounded by shelving units and the low hum of industrial lighting. What did the statements show? Everything. All the transfers, the tuition payments, your name is on all of it. 3 years of payments. 47 transfers. 9 days later, she called. I was at the diner, on my break, eating a cup of soup by the back door. She didn't say hello. She said, "How much?" Between direct tuition payments, housing supplements, books, and miscellaneous transfers, $111,000. Over 4 years. The silence on the other end of the line was the longest I have ever heard. Jordan, I called you a cautionary tale. I said you were a loser. In front of everyone. I know. How could you just stand there and not say anything? Because telling you wasn't the point, I said. Getting you through school was the point. She was crying now, the raw kind, the kind that comes when something you thought was a foundation turns out to have been someone else's hands, holding it up from underneath all along. I have to fix this, she said. You don't have to do anything right now, I said. Focus on graduation. We'll talk more after. I hung up and finished my soup. It had gone cold. The graduation ceremony was held on the Hargrove Quad, beautiful in the way spaces are beautiful when they've been maintained by serious money for 100 years. Old stone buildings, oak trees, that particular shade of May blue that feels like a promise. I wore a good jacket. Navy fitted. My first real discretionary purchase in years. My mother cried when she saw me in it. You look like yourself, she said. I didn't know what Cassie had planned. She'd been selected as a student speaker, but was vague about the content. She walked to the podium and stood for a moment looking out at the quad. Then she said something none of us expected. I want to start by apologizing. I've been practicing this speech for 6 weeks, and that's the only way I know how to begin it. The crowd quieted. I looked up from my program. When I came to Hargrove, I believed I was here through pure merit. My grades, my test scores, my determination. Some of that is true. But I recently learned there's a part of the story I didn't know. A part that someone very close to me carried alone, without recognition, for 4 years. My mother reached over and grabbed my hand. My older sibling Jordan worked 2 jobs, a daytime shift at a restaurant and a nighttime position at a warehouse, for 4 years to fund my education. Not some of it. Most of it. $111,000. While I was here building a future, my sibling was working 80-hour weeks in a small apartment, skipping holidays, giving up their own dreams so I could pursue mine. The quad was very quiet. I could hear the oak trees. I came home last year and called Jordan a cautionary tale in front of our whole family. I said they had no trajectory. I was embarrassed by the car they drove, the clothes they wore because they were sending their discretionary income to me every month. I stood in clothes they indirectly paid for, and I mocked them. She paused. So here is what I want this graduating class to understand as we go out and build careers and tell stories about our hard work. Look behind you. Look at who is holding the scaffolding. Find the people who are quiet about their sacrifice because their love is bigger than their need for credit. See them. Thank them. Don't let the story of your success erase the people who made it possible. She looked up from her notes. Directly at where we were sitting. Directly at me. Jordan, you are the furthest thing from a loser I have ever known. You are the most quietly extraordinary person I have ever encountered. And I am so sorry it took me this long to say that out loud. The applause started slowly and built. I did not cry. I have spent 4 years training myself not to cry in front of people. But I sat in my good navy jacket on that quad, and I let the sound of the applause wash over me like something I had earned. My father was crying. Uncle Robbie, who had chuckled at that party, had gone completely still. Aunt Diane was not looking at her phone. After the ceremony, Cassie found me on the quad, still in her cap and gown, carrying her diploma. She walked toward me carefully, like someone approaching something they weren't sure would stay still. She stopped in front of me. I should have asked you before I did the speech. If you didn't want me to say it publicly, that was your right. I didn't mind, I said. I need you to know I'm going to spend a very long time making this right. You don't have to. I know I don't have to, she said. I want to. That's different. It is different. That turned out to be exactly the right thing to say. She threw both arms around me, diploma and all, with a full-body urgency of someone who has been waiting for permission. I stood there a second and then I hugged her back, and I felt the strange weight of 4 years pressing against something that might have been relief. In June, 2 weeks after graduation, I gave notice at the warehouse. Stayed at the diner because I genuinely liked it. Cut my hours to 30 a week and used the free time to research culinary programs. I found one, a serious evening and weekend program at a culinary institute 2 hours away. Applied in July. Accepted in August. Started in September. The first day, I sat at a stainless steel prep station and my instructor put a chef's knife in front of me and said, "Tell me what you know." I told her. It was more than I'd expected. The money I'd been sending toward Cassie's life, I redirected into a savings account I labeled simply, JE Future Fund. By December, it had enough for 3 full semesters of culinary school. Cassie started her consulting job and sent me a transfer on the 1st of every month. Not enormous. She had her own rent now, but consistent. More than the amount, it was the consistency that mattered. She was keeping the ledger in her head, voluntarily, the way I had kept it in mind for years. We talked more after graduation than we had in years. Real talks. She asked about culinary school. I asked about her work. We argued about a movie once, which sounds small and was, in its own way, enormous, arguing as equals, neither of us performing a role. One night in October, she asked me if I was angry at her, really angry, underneath the forgiveness. I think I was angry for a long time, I finally said. But I kept putting it down because being angry meant admitting I needed something from you. And I decided I didn't need anything. That wasn't fair to either of us, she said.
No.
It wasn't. I want you to be able to be angry with me.
Give me some time, I said.
She gave me time. That was new for her. We had dinner in January, just the 2 of us. Split a bottle of wine. She told me about a project she was proud of. I told her about a sauce I'd been developing. At the end she said, "Are you happy?" I thought about the question.
I'm getting there, I said.
I think that's more honest than yes. What does getting there look like? It looks like this. A good meal with my sister. A kitchen I can learn in. A savings account I'm building for myself. Being tired for reasons that are mine. She teared up a little. "You're allowed to be proud of yourself," she said quietly. "I want you to stop measuring your worth by what you give. You're worth something just by being here."
Do you know that?
I thought about the flannel shirt in the back of my closet. The frayed elbow. The glass of water I'd set down so carefully on a shelf while something tore in me that no one saw. "I'm working on knowing it," I said. She raised her glass. I raised mine. "To you," she said. "To both of us," I said. "To doing better." We drank. The wine was good. The restaurant was warm. And somewhere in the future, not so far off now, there was a small restaurant, maybe 14 tables, a seasonal menu, a kitchen that was only mine, waiting for me to be ready for it. I was getting there. It turns out that was the whole point all along. Not the sacrifice. The arrival.